Nice face, Feinberg. Nice face. Yeah, that's it. Minute. Can you duck a little bit? I want to get his face in the window. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. That's the guy who we rely on to do our camera work. That ape.
I'm David Feinberg, and VBS sent me to China with a camera to film the dirtiest place on the planet. It is the city of Linfen. And spending about a day here breathing in the air is about the same as smoking 3 packs of cigarettes. The scary part is that there's a lot of cities in China like this. 16 of the world's 20 most polluted cities are in China. And my bosses convinced me to come here and spend a week filming and breathing in all this crap, so they didn't have to.
I fell in love with a little Indian girl, and she stole my heart away. She took me to a powwow way out on the plains and runs the bed. Then it brought the rain. And I listened to the stories all through the night, through the haze of that east pipe. The night grew long, so I
Linfen produces what any nation of over 1 billion people need, a ton of energy. It's an endless landscape of factories, all spewing a bunch of toxic chemicals into the air and poisoning the land and the water. There's no clouds, just a permanent toxic smog hovering over the city. Linfen is located in the heart of Shanxi Province. Every day, thousands of coal trucks go between Linfen and the rest of China's cities. Then they come back empty for more.
因为中国的能源消耗以煤为主，山西啊，在这个中国是一个煤炭开采规模最大，但是因为煤的这个洁净利用问题啊，是一个世界性的难题。这个呢，这几年这个临汾一直在排在这个全球污染的严重污染城市这个排行榜上，就是说是一个能源的煤炭的生产大省，也是一个煤炭的消耗大省。但是在这个开发利用过程中呢，因为因为人们的一个发展的理念，这是一个问题。再一个呢，就是人们单纯追求这个经济的高速增长的这么一个观念，所以说导致了这个煤炭开发过程中造成的这个环境问题非常严重。
China suffers from both local problems and global environmental challenges. So the combined impacts of climate change and local pollutions are causing enormous consequences. A lot of the environmental problems in China are very closely linked to our energy consumption. Because there's something fundamentally wrong with the economic model, that's why the more the economy grows, the more the environment start to get worse. Linfen really shows the other side of Chinese economic development, which is actually the ugly side of it. And this is about how unbalanced the Chinese development has been.
The sky in Linfen was taken from a sci-fi movie, but life there seems relatively normal. There's 4 million people, and like any other town in China, its roads are clogged with cars and trucks, and there's a lot of construction. Linfen has had a bit of a PR problem ever since the World Bank called it the most polluted place on Earth. Even the Chinese media has reported on the disaster, admitting that people have been moving away because of the pollution. I didn't see anyone leaving town except all the coal trucks. They're actually a big source of pollution themselves and are everywhere. Linfen has no tourism, and I think we were the only foreigners in the entire city. Everywhere we went, we really stuck out.
Hello. What is it?
Ni hao. When we pulled up to this elementary school, some kids were leaving for the day, and it looked like there was a huge fire burning down the neighborhood. The kids weren't too worried, and I realized that this is probably what they see every time they leave school or go outside to play.
Just take the example of air pollution. 70% of Chinese cities cannot meet their air quality standards. The burning of coal is the main cause of air pollution in China. But of course, the increasing transport and also the constructions going on everywhere in China are also reasons for air pollution.
诊所是个私人诊所，生到这儿，长到这儿，周围我吧，主要是还是为这个周围的，这多少年了嘛，就是为周围群众服务的。一般的农村呢，它这个常见病、多发病，比较多。再一个有你像这高血压、冠心病、肺心病的抢救啊这样。胃癌、肺癌，你像这都是比较多。 就是这不戴，一般的人不习惯戴口罩，自己没有什么防尘设备，没有什么都没有。戴口罩，这里人一般都不习惯，那就预防不了，就没办法，都要呼吸空气嘛，没办法。就是工业排出来的这个气味能够老百姓能够闻见的这个二氧化硫的这个特别刺鼻的这个味道。
因为临汾是一个盆地。 从盆地这个角度来说呢，它的这个大气的扩散条件不是很好，这样的话使得这个污染物啊，大气污染物不易扩散，使得它的这个污染的程度非常严重。
这个呢，它空气污染太厉害，你像是生病来了以后，绝对是很痛苦的。有吧退休的，他呢不是有这个气管不好。 时间长了以后，就是肺心病嘛。你像跟我岁数一般大的，你像这些差不多的，你像好多少呢？他有些个不是就是由于气管感染，他这个干活啥，这个重体力活有时候就干不了了。
过不得4、50年了，就在这个家，啊，是在这个家里，连上气都不上气。
连那风机都起来，不上机，那盘的哪儿不去？
是支气管炎，就是支气管炎。一炖的就冬天就热，就厉害；夏天盘呢还比这屋里还空气好些，在家里就聚的厉害，在房子里就聚的。
When I found out I was going to Linfen, I found some painter's masks under the sink in our office. My mom also told me I should wear a mask at all times, and I saw a lot of photos of people on the streets of Chinese cities wearing masks. When we got to Linfen, we were surprised to find out that nobody wore masks. I didn't want to stick out anymore, so we left the masks behind. However, I still took a photo wearing a mask just to show my mom when I got home.
Back from the waters of the Yellow Sea, far inland from the eastern plains, for unnumbered generations, farmers have plowed the fertile soil. After the harvest, the plow, and after the plow, the planting. This has been the cycle, endlessly repeated. Through the ages, waters from the mountains have been fed to the fields of the valley for crops that have never failed. One day, the farmer looked up from his work in age-old fields and saw a strange new carriage. The engineers of a far-off land devised new uses for flowing streams, producing a strange new power. To the valley came electricity that bring to valley homes the signs of a changing world.
It was only 20 years ago that Linfen was nicknamed the fruit and flower town of Shanxi Province. Since then, it's basically been turned into China's coal mine. It's even more remarkable to think that this has all happened in the span of my lifetime.
虽然这个城市规模不大，建成区的面积，因为当时它是一个农业为主的地区。因为开采过程中的对环境的破坏呢，实际上主要是对生态的破坏，就是对土壤和水，植被这个破坏要比较大。但是这个过程中的这个洗煤废水的处理呢，也是一个非常难的问题。
以前水挺大的，现在是从上面下雨的了。
你觉得这水质怎么样啊？
挺好的。以前不是，以前挺清的，以前还有这个。
In China, over half of all the rivers are polluted. 1/3 of the lakes are polluted, and over 80% or 90% of the urban groundwater are polluted. So this is about how serious the water pollution is in China. Those pollutions mainly come from industry processes. It's about factories who do not clean up their pollutants before they release those things into the river. And also another main contributor is the pollutants from the pesticides used in the agriculture process. Most of those cancer villages are actually caused by water pollution, and because the people in those villages depend on this river for their water sources. That's why you see a very higher percentage of cancer patients in those villages.
All of the food I had in Linfen was actually quite good. It may have been full of cancerous toxins, but at least I could tell it was grown in the ground as opposed to in some laboratory. I have a feeling a lot of the stuff I eat back home may be just as bad for me.
我小的时候，这个村子是相当好，因为啥比较好呢？这个我的村子呢有泉水，有3个泉的话，它不是有泉的，你像里边鱼虾什么都有。而且呢，你像老百姓浇地呢，人家在浇地呢，所以说现在这个泉呢全部干掉了，今年就全部没有了。因为啥呢？它是肠子太多，地下水源呢，它提取的太厉害了。前几年呢，有一次，就是在这儿一走以后，它就是污染的，那整个这两边的路两边的麦子，到时候它是检查特别厉害。分类起来以后，就那。刚让麦子养花的时候嘛，那就影响了，最少减产1/3，就是没有颗粒了。农民呢倒是也不少，因为他走不了嘛。
Much has changed in the valley, and much remains the same. The farmer tills his fields today as his ancestors did in ages past. A heritage endures. The people of the valley come and go. Life in village and city goes on. As generations have come and gone, the mountain streams have flowed on. The friendly earth still yields its produce, and cradling the valley now as always, silent, lofty mountains keep their eternal vigil.
Every piece of coal in China is intended to go through one of the national coal factories. This is a private coal mine that was shut down by the authorities. Private mining is illegal, but since there's such a crazy demand for coal, a lot of people try to start their own mine in order to profit from the lucrative black market. Most of them are not successful and get fined or put in jail.
山西煤炭开发大规模的开发呀，开始于1987年，1978年，1978年 对，就是也和中国的改革开放这个时期是大致是相同的。从这个中央的决策开始呢，而且呢建成了一大批这个大型的这个煤炭企业，山西煤炭呢就进入了大规模高强度的开发的过程。
The enormous government factories are easy to spot. We drove by a lot of them, but never hung out for very long because we didn't want the security guards to see us.
所以说，这个如果说是山西挖不出这么多煤，运输不出去这么多的这个煤，那东部地区的这个经济发展这个目标是实现不了的。而东部地区经济目标实现不了的话，中国的经济的翻两番的目标也是实现不了的。
To get a better sense of the illegal coal industry, we went into the hills about 2 hours outside of Linfen. The area was still dense with pollution, and we started to see smaller factories and then what appeared to be some illegal mines. Since they're not regulated by the government and are operated using old methods, the illegal mines are a big part of the pollution problem.
那个煤矿，然后我们就想过来跟您聊一聊，然后再去你们家煤矿看一看，可以吗？
坐下，你先坐下，坐下，坐下，坐下。你那个瓜子拿来，我去年打的下雨家，我那个新址不能干，我那个口子都开了。
在哪边啊？在山那边。
在那边，就在对边山上的，那个口子卖着的。哦，那个长就像这个草儿一样，这不是那个眼口子啊，找手都根部杵子一当，它推卖。
他那个你走在路上的时候，可不可以一边走一边给他们介绍？然后他们想给你带一个麦克风，这样声音可以收进来，行吗？
那个你听，我就和那边去了山里就是，你在那儿转圈，那边山上都一样。不是，我请个是我，你听，我想他妈都让你知道，反正是个麻烦。人肯定说我骑着铲子端的，一好吧，对我是个麻烦。我自然你们山里就是，你现在懂的了吗？咱个人私人老百姓看这个是个麻烦事，以后那村里行，他妈一直一村那咱那村真的村现在要早安个还是，你现在意思了吗？这个底下打了个墩，打了个2、30个招，不全部颠没的，咱那关系就得啥，咱就通。现在人我们村里基本上不多，我们村里基本上没太多的，基本上都没了，政府住的没了。就那个政府就给我们住的卖了，俺这个老百姓打过，今天才比他打，明天再打，那个是媳妇儿学的。其他我们是没有，这里就一个那有一个怪款。
Most of the people we approached for interviews were very friendly with us. But pretty soon they realized that the questions we were asking could get them in trouble. A lot of the residents of Linfen have been excluded from the economic prosperity that has come to the region. It's basically what happens when a bunch of farmers are forced to try to make a living from harvesting coal instead of harvesting crops. Everywhere we went, people seemed to be scavenging for bricks, metal, wire, or anything else to make some money. After spending a week in Linfen, my eyes burned a little, my throat itched, and when I picked my nose, my boogers had turned black.
就是可预见的30年啊，煤是中国的基础能源。这个是个必然的，就是类似于环境污染这些问题，就是发达国家它也产生过。现在中国走到这一步呢，它也是一个可以说也是一个必然产生的一个问题。特别是因为这个环境压力和全球气候变化问题，也在积极的探讨 寻找一些洁净、高效的一些能源。在这个发展正确的发展理念，特别是以科学发展观、以可持续发展这个理念指导下呢，中国这个发展啊，还是逐渐会走上这个持续健康，就是人与自然协调，和谐发展的这么一条道路。
After almost a week in Linfen, the police came to our hotel. They didn't come to our rooms, but they had the hotel staff bring us what our translator said were registration forms. We were afraid that our tapes might get confiscated because, after all, we were filming illegally. We were basically there as tourists who happened to have professional video cameras. We got a last glimpse of the factories and empty rivers. It was as good a time as any to leave.
We are faced with a very short time window to make the right choices about our future. So it's not a question about whether or not China should develop. China has to develop in order to lift more people out of poverty. However, it's more about how China should develop. The local level officials are still very much obsessed with just economic growth. Really, the evaluation of officials' performance have to change in big way in order to give more incentive for those people on the local level to do more for the environment.
When the World Bank first named Linfen the most polluted city on Earth, the Chinese government set about to improve the situation, closing down factories, rerouting truck traffic, and there were even some signs around the city calling attention to the problem. As for the coal trucks, we were surrounded by them for another 20 hours as we drove back to Beijing. And we sat in our van at one toll booth for about 6 hours in the middle of the night. All of the fumes helped me sleep through most of it as coal trucks idled around us and the car in front of us ran out of gas. Growing up, my impression of China was of a huge boulevard entirely full of bicycles. They've obviously been replaced by cars and trucks, and if you add the burning of coal to that, as well as all of the manufacturing that goes on, China is now the world's leading polluter.
I think that China is trying its best, try to host a good Olympic game and try to give a good impression for the whole rest of the world. Measures try to clean up air for the Beijing Olympics. If you look at them, a lot of them are very short term. It's about shutting down factories, and it's about having strict transport restrictions. It will actually be much more smart if we try to think of long-term structural solutions. As a Beijing citizen, if I would have clean air for those 2 weeks in Beijing, and then afterwards I would think, why can't I have that every day? These are all things that can lead to much long-term thinking after the Olympics.
A lot of people say China is going through its own industrial revolution, but I think that China's problem is kind of a global problem. One of the biggest winners from China's economic rise are the American and other multinational companies who use cheap labor and materials to produce goods that are sent all over the world. As big a mess as China has to clean up, the United States is still the largest per capita polluter in the world. China's claims that the blue skies have opened over Linfen is obviously false, especially when you watch the sunset end about 20 minutes early when the sun sets behind an artificial curtain of smog. However, once the sun goes down, the stars do come out to shine in Linfen.
尊敬的各位朋友，亲爱的各位来宾、女士们、先生们、海外侨胞、港澳同胞、商界精英、企业巨子、官场要员、黑道老大、大款大腕、大老板、大哥大姐、帅哥靓妹儿，大家晚上好！中国灵魂华瑞演艺广场，精彩演绎，精细打造，至诚奉献。 在现实与梦想之间正式开始。